right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
Hi everyone, this is Sean and welcome back to... Before we kick off our inaugural episode of 2022, examining just how blockchain technology and Web3 will impact not only the way we approach investing, but the very fabric of how society functions, we have to first lead with a little disclaimer. Everything we talk about today is for entertainment purposes only. And since no one else seems to completely understand any of this, including maybe even us, we hope you find our babble informative, but most of all entertaining. So let's dive right into it. Now, unless you're the alien locked away in Elon's basement, you've probably realized that the world outside your window has experienced some tremendous changes in the US over the last number of decades. All races and religions have received equal rights under the letter of the law. Same-sex marriages have not only been destigmatized, but more importantly, legalized. And the social acceptance of self-defined gender identities is now as American as apple pie. But best of all, Coldplay has finally stopped making music. Just kidding about the last one. They never really made music in the first place, now did they?
I was burping a lot because I ate some banana right before we came on stage. I just want to apologize. If any of you want a banana refund, you're very entitled to it. The first 3 songs were far too gassy.
But musical taste aside, it seems the Western world we live in is slowly but surely becoming a place where personal freedoms reign supreme, and the only person that can force us to behave in a prescribed manner is really our own damn selves. The notion of individual freedom is really a critical ingredient for someone to be able to live a happy and fulfilling life. But what happens when those freedoms, be they necessities or strong personal desires, are stifled by larger powers that be? In reality, there are really few solutions available to those truly disenfranchised from traditional society. So it's not uncommon to see those people rejecting traditional systems altogether. But what's particularly interesting, however, is that we're now seeing Main Street society pushing back as well. But until today, options to adopt a different way of doing things have been limited, to say the least, by all-powerful governing authorities and centralized institutions. Don't like your bank? Well, you can switch to another one, but the experience will probably be exactly the same. Don't like your ideas being censored online? Well, even sitting presidents can't fight that these days. Like it or not, even Donald Trump was unanimously banned from the internet by the overlords. But what's the alternative? Well, ladies and germs, it seems that with blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, and the arrival of Web3, that a new system may finally be upon us. Just imagine an economy without institutional banks, an internet without central servers, an end to disinformation campaigns, social media platforms without authoritarian censorship. In other words, a world without the man. At least, that's the promise of Web3, which is based on, okay, wait for it, a decentralized system of independent servers that contain a distributed ledger duplicated on each computer connected to the network. If any of the individual nodes are decommissioned, data is distributed to all the other connected computers on the network to prevent centralized system failure. To shut down the system, every connected computer would have to go down simultaneously, which is an outcome more remote than winning the lottery 4 times in a row. Okay, now that our definition is over and your suffering has ended, we'll get back to what Web3 is exactly in a nutshell later on in the video. But while the world and its participants are now waking up to the promise of decentralization being ushered in by Bitcoin, crypto, NFTs, and the blockchain technology that's really powering it all, the thing most striking to us is that the current conversation seems to primarily be centered around the ability to trade and profit from the next project or minted coin, when the most interesting and profound thing that we see is the fundamental shift in individual attitudes towards central authorities, institutions, and organizational systems whose rules and policies are really dictated by the empowered few rather than the disempowered many. Now, in commercial real estate, where our business primarily resides, the return to the office problem is a really good example of attitude changes taking place and how centralized company leadership across the country are all struggling to figure out how to get employees back to the office while taking all employees' individual needs into consideration. Now, in the past, a command and control order from the top would have been sufficiently accepted to get everyone back.
I hope you're energized and ready, because we have a big year ahead of us. I'm counting on you to do what we do best, perform with excellence and with integrity.
That's what defines us.
But today, such a draconian action would be considered absolute heresy. But let's talk about why we think the real reason people don't want to go back to the office is. And it's not because they're lazy, nor do we feel it's entirely the fear of getting sick. We also don't think it's completely about the commute. No, we profess that it just might be driven more by the growing and subconscious prevalence of the decentralizing power of the blockchain movement, and that the renewed desire passed down in our collective DNA to challenge traditional, institutional, and corporate authority, or to basically stick it to the man.
And there used to be a way to stick it to the man. It was called rock and roll. But guess what? Oh no, the man ruined that too with a little thing called MTV!
So, is this the new power to the people? Well, maybe not all of them, but according to the blockchain protocol, you really only need 51%. In a world underpinned by Web3 and blockchain protocols, decisions are made not by the powerful few, but by a majority consensus. And in this world, good luck getting the majority to reach consensus on returning to the office and leaving their furry friends and fuzzy slippers behind.
Yeah, I got you. I got this on camera.
But I digress. Back to employees and the real reason we think they might be resisting those cozy institutional office buildings. Maybe it's as simple as them just wanting to exert their newfound autonomy and power, which appears to have been ignited by the pandemic, but may actually hold its persistence from the decentralized and distributed manner in which they have become accustomed to working away from what might be considered the centralized and oppressive authority that the traditional office represents. At least for just a little while longer, as we transition further into the greater acceptance of a decentralized society brought on by none other than Web3. So what exactly is Web3, you ask? Well, we're glad you asked the question, because we too have no idea, but apparently no one else seems to either. So we've decided to just run with our own interpretation, and here it goes. And oh, by the way, we welcome Satoshi Nakamoto, wherever he may be hiding, to challenge our definition of Web3. So bring it on, Satoshi. I'm thinking bare knuckle cage match where the winner takes the loser's mine coins. Sounds pretty fair and reasonable to me, as the truth is I have none. Now, in order to appreciate the significance of the internet's evolution into Web3, it's important to understand how we really got here and what we've experienced to date in what is otherwise known as Web 1 and Web 2. Now, Web 1 is typically understood to be the internet in the 1990s, where users logged in to essentially consume information provided by a central authority. Think reading articles from the New York Times or Yahoo News. What Web 2 provided us in the 2000s was a means to not just consume information presented to us, but to create our own user-generated data by uploading our personal content and interacting with others' personally uploaded content. But in Web 2, all the user-generated data and content that we uploaded would be owned and controlled by a central server and central authority. Think Tumblr, Facebook, or even LinkedIn. But now, with the advent of Web3, really everything changes. Blockchain in Web3 now enables all participants to not only own and have autonomy over their personal data, but with greater online anonymity if they so choose. Users also have control over how the rules that govern the network actually work, since data in a decentralized world is no longer dictated by a central server or central authority. In fact, each piece of information placed on the blockchain needs to be verified and re-verified by every party that uses it. If you remember from earlier, all data is replicated on every individual computer on the connected network. This makes the data immutable, which makes it nearly impossible for individual actors to create disinformation, since remember, all data needs to be verified and re-verified, or to take down or alter information that was created on the blockchain, since every connected computer on the network would have to agree to retroactively alter the change in every block on the network as well. And there's just not enough computing power in the world to allow that to happen, at least not until quantum computers kick into high gear. But that's a topic for a different time. So the premise of the blockchain and crypto is not just an investment thesis to grow individual wealth, but a philosophical, social, and economic movement that exists to bestow greater power to the individual participants of a network, rather than traditional centralized governing authorities or institutions. This is a world where trust is eliminated by a mutual verification process, where everything is distributed away from a single governing authority dictating what can and cannot happen, or even middlemen slowing down the process or increasing our costs, where the individual on the network makes their own rules in a truly trustless environment. In this world, the very foundation of society is built on protocols that can govern a new way to approach everything from elections, currency, transactions, education, and documented history. If this sounds like utopia, Neo and Morpheus might just have a bone to pick with you.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
But the reality is that we're still in the early stages of figuring out where this is all going. And we would love to hear your opinions on the subject. So let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, guys, if you haven't already. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you next time on a new episode of In the Black.